I can't. I know you want to because you're controversial. Yeah, the model of getting hold of cars either was from manufacturers, or I think if it was too difficult to get hold of something, if it's too rare, too much of a unicorn, Top Gear were brilliant at getting hold of owners' cars. Jeremy Clarkson is good mates with Nick Mason, and you see Pink Floyd music throughout Top Gear, which is just epic. That they did that. I think it's just that's another thing. Just raised the bar with the output. Nick very kindly lent us his Enzo. I think it's always harder though when it's not a manufacturer car. You just want to give it a bit more respect, but you can't be too respectful. With maximizing a lap time, you need to send it. So I went into that mode, put the helmet on, off we go. But we weren't doing gratuitous power slides. But for the Stig lap, wasn't doing that anyway. That was a wonderful car. I was amazed by it because it was at the time. I think it was faster than anything else. It was certainly the fastest Ferrari, and at that point, I hadn't driven the F40, but I was aware of it. I was particularly aware of the F50, which is this sort of poster car. It just looked dangerous. It looked, the housing for the engine. It just was this vast thing. I think in my mind that was otherworldly performance, and so the Enzo was the next level to take on from that. So it was sleeker, slimmer sort of car, a bit more contained. The engine bay was not as bruisey as an F50. The wings were more subtle, and actually it's quite tail happy. So the lack of wing on it, I thought that was something I was quite surprised by. So it's phenomenal fun to drive. But the tail was pretty loose, and actually I drove it on a road as well, and over a current of a road, and you get gassed up. There's plenty of power, and there's not as much aero clinging it to the road as you would get now, like modern car. I think that is one of the. It was fairly quickly surpassed in terms of outright performance, but I loved it. I think what was really cool with it is it was very playful, beautiful, basic inside, but you really acutely the handling's fantastic on that. I think that was the precursor of things to come in the 458. But the 458 is a more balanced car. It's more you can be surgically precise. The Enzo, I think, is for like fun having looks and everything else. It's right up there as a in terms of a perfect Ferrari. I think it's pretty damn close. Nick Mason was very chilled. I mean, I never even, he just gave the keys to Jeremy and that was that. So he wasn't there at the side of the track worrying, biting his nails, like what's he going to do to my car? He had a really great relationship with Andy and Jeremy, so I think there's a lot of trust there. And when someone says, "Look, this is Nick's car, you'll look after us," absolutely, yeah, we'll look after it. That Dunsfold lap, okay, barring one little mishap with the Koenigsegg, it's difficult to do much wrong. There is good space. You don't really want to run wide because once you get on that grass, things can dig in and get unpleasant. But I've done enough laps around there to behave myself. And the Enzo is really planted. There's not many cars that really want to swap ends and cause you trouble, with the exception of the Alpha 8C and nearly every TVR that was ever made. It's funny what we got on Top Gear, and that the stream of cars, because we had everything. Because you'd have a Golf, you'd have a Fiesta, you'd have a TVR would come, but the performance did seem to ramp up. So I started at the end of 2002, but properly 2003 with my white outfit. The ferocity of the machinery it just scaled up over time. And now you've got, what have we got? There was that nuts, the V8 Atom, the huge wing, all kinds of weird and wonderful varieties. But the modern supercar now is off the charts, isn't it? I mean, the horsepower, the downforce they're creating, the tires that are designed for that car. The tailored tire is a new thing. So you kind of get used to hypercars now, and you just see them rolling around. But yeah, the Enzo was definitely a moment in time. You're like, wow, this is another level of engineering. But what I thought was quite cool was the Maserati. I just love Maserati. It's so underrated. It's just under the radar. They're just quietly there at Ferrari HQ or nearby, with similar technology, doing things slightly differently. And the MC12, when that came, it was bigger, bulkier than the Enzo, but with more downforce. I remember at the time it was racing an FIA GT. It was the car to have. That MC12 was epic. It did, I suppose, it did everything the Enzo did, but better. with more grip, and it was pretty amazing to look at. And that thing was like sort of galactic, sort of, it was white and blue, and it was sort of, I don't know, almost like it's a yacht-like livery, but yeah, beast performance. And it did feel like you're in a mini racing car, but it was not that much different engineering-wise to the Enzo, but they just did little things that just add up to make it a superior car. It's now been recognized because the prices on those things are going through the roof. So Maserati is having its day, but I still think there's a lot more in the tank for Maserati. After I left Top Gear, McLaren had come up with something to challenge Ferrari with, and it was Ferrari had the 458. My favorite, one of my absolute favorite cars. I absolutely love the 458. It's just such an intuitive car. Handling is wonderful. No turbo, just pure. McLaren turbocharged. So they came in with a turbocharged V8 that just pipped the power output of the Ferrari. And I was doing a comparison with Car Magazine. So we had a bunch of different cars there to compare. But the real head-to-head was the MP4 versus the 458. And each car had 5 laps around a Rockingham infield track. So I was blasting around in the Ferrari, posted a time. Again, the Ferrari guys were there. And you could, the tent and the McLaren people there too. So it was quite tense. And McLaren had that interesting hydraulic suspension. So there was a anti-roll bar system, which was quite complex. There's fluid moving around to use for the ride control. And it did actually, I don't know, I liken it almost to a waterbed. Like it had this sensuous sort of feeling that when it was dynamic, when the weight transfer was happening, it was like nothing else I'd driven. It was beautiful. It was incredible how it rode. The turbo was different, so you're getting into that. It wasn't so much lag, but you still get a surge of torque. So that was different to handle. Did a few laps with it to do the first run, but I wanted to turn the traction control off, and they wouldn't let me. So this is the thing, different approaches. Ferrari, how do you want it? I want it like this, you have it, you go. And that, I think at that point, when the Manatino was coming in and it was really well engineered, it was really hand-eye, right foot, steer, fire it in there. But McLaren didn't want me to turn the traction off. I was like, really? Are you sure? So I think it'd be better. So I got a second run, and eventually they did turn the traction off. But the thing was, by then, I think they'd developed a problem with the hydraulic system. It lost some rigidity and it was rolling too much. So my lap time wasn't better. So we'd done, I think, 2 or 3 runs, and the Ferrari was quicker, which was a major shocker. Was not what they expected. And I don't think they were particularly happy when Car Magazine did their front cover and it just said, there's a picture of me with the cars, McLaren's worst nightmare. So I felt a little, that was a little bit of a tough one. And I think I'm told that McLaren went back on their own to sort of try and set their own times and stuff like that. So all of these brands are super passionate and committed, but it's interesting how the approaches can be different. And in terms of some of the accusations about, bringing multiple cars to a shoot, I never saw that. I don't know where that's from. In my experience at Top Gear, we had the full range of cars as per every other manufacturer. Everybody got treated the same. The same rules applied. The only manufacturer that I saw that got more than one set of tyres because they brought them was the Bugatti Veyron Supersport, where we went through 2 sets in half an hour, whatever that cost. It was the most expensive half an hour, 100 grand's worth of tyres. I think it was really well adjudicated, yeah.
Successful car purchasing is all about knowing your buying power and being able to move quickly. And the best way to do that is getting pre-qualified with Premier Financial Services. Call one of these numbers, speak to one of their representatives, fill out their application, and then you'll know exactly how much car you can buy. You'll approach a seller, tell them you're already qualified, you've got your simple lease set up from Premier Financial, and you'll be able to close very, very quickly. That's why Premier is one of the most powerful partners in the world of exotic car financing, and that's why I turn to them every time I go out and try to buy something crazy.